Hello there. All right, so for today, I'm going to be showing you guys my particular setup on how to get analog controls into Super Mario 64 DS via a DS emulator on your computer. This isn't exactly going to be a tutorial because I'm not really going to show you guys how to get the materials necessary. I'm just going to tell you what materials you need. So for one, you're going to need the DS emulator itself. I'm using Desmume or Desmumi or however the heck you're supposed to pronounce it. And you're also going to need JoyToKey. Now, I'm not going to show you how to get these two pieces of software. I'm not going to show you how to go to the download link and download and install it into your computer. I feel like that's rather self-explanatory. Most, if not all of you, should be able to, figure that out on your own. It's not too hard. But yeah, you're going to need Desmume, JoyToKey, and of course a ROM file of Super Mario 64 DS itself, and of course a controller to play it with, of course. So the first thing we're going to want to do is open up Desmume. I'm just using the newest release at the time of this video, and yeah. So how I have it set up is I play in a full screen windowed mode. And the first thing you're probably going to want to do as soon as you get the DS emulator running is to just, map the buttons, accordingly, however you'd like. If your controller is properly connected to your computer, just map them accordingly and should be all good. All right, now you can adjust the emulator's resolution options however you'd like, but we're gonna want the screen ratio size to be, I guess, this setting. Yeah, we don't want this. This setting. And the reason why I do this is because, sure, you might want to be, maybe more like this where it's, you can't really see it now, but maybe you might want it like this where there's more upper screen real estate than bottom screen real estate. But for my setup, I actually want to have as much bottom screen real estate as possible. This will give us this will make it a lot more flexible for us when transcribing analog inputs to mouse cursor inputs, which will go to the touchscreen. And that really should be it for our DS emulator here. And again, I just play in a full screen windowed mode. All right, now the next thing we're going to want to do is get JoyToKey up and running. And as you can see, I have two profiles for JoyToKey. You can name the profiles however you'd like. I didn't because didn't really care, honestly. But I have two, and I'll explain why later. But for the first profile, this is where our actual controller inputs are recognized. As you can see, I'm fiddling with the controller, and JoyToKey is detecting all the buttons and the sticks that are being recognized. But for us, we're going to be focusing on mainly just the analog stick. But the first thing you're probably going to want to do is maybe adjust the dead zone right here. This is how you adjust the dead zone for your analog stick, depending on how loose or stiff your stick is. Mine's pretty stiff and still, mint brand new-ish. I'm using a Nintendo Switch Pro controller since, that's what I prefer for playing PC games. But yeah, I don't have a loose stick, so I just set the dead zone to 0. You might have to, but I don't. So for analog stick inputs, we have the 4 adjacent directions here. So right click, edit this button assignment, or you can just hit edit button assignment down here. And yeah, you're going to want to go to the mouse advanced tab right here. And the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set up a center position for the mouse cursor. And what this means is we're creating a center point for the mouse to automatically default towards. And we just want this default center position to be anywhere within the bottom screen's area here, just anywhere. And this is the value that I chose. I am using a 1080p monitor. I don't know if the resolution will really affect it much, but yeah, and it really should only be the x-axis here that you should worry about. So just adjust it until your mouse center point is somewhere within this. And I'll mention now, you want the center point to be consistent with all directions of the joystick here. As you can see, x-axis value 75. I have that for all the directions of my analog stick. Those all need to be consistent. Yeah, so for this configuration, this is analog stick left. And we're going to want to do is we're going to need to have spring mode activated. In spring mode will basically, it'll let the mouse move within a certain radius in conjunction with inputs from the analog stick. So as you can see, since this is left, we're going to want it to be just any of these values. The little diagram on the left there, you can probably see it moving. That'll, it'll show you how far the mouse will go. I've tinkered with this a bunch. By all means, fiddle with this however you like, but my value will be -8. And you're going to want consistency with perpendicular directions. So, this is left on the analog stick, -8. So for right on the analog stick, I have it as +8. And then for up on the analog stick, I have -14. And then for down on the analog stick, I have +14. You just need to have those perpendicular directions be consistent. So yeah, and that's basically all you need for your analog stick movements. Because as you can see, if I click out of JoyToKey, my mouse is now it's now trapped in the center position that we have established before. And if I move the analog stick, as you can see, the mouse is moving in a set radius based on the values that I put in. So yeah, but we're also going to need to configure some buttons, and I have two. These represent my shoulder buttons. You can use your triggers, but I recommend either triggers or the bumpers, and I just use the bumpers. So for my left bumper, I have a mouse click. A mouse left click, and all we need is just to toggle between a mouse left click right here in the mouse tab, and then we need to have toggle between on and off check marked. This will mean that once we press the left bumper here, it'll hold a left mouse click, and you could probably see why we're going to need that later. And then for my right bumper, I just have a standard left mouse click. Not toggled on and off, not in a hold position, just a standard left mouse click. And that should be it. So why don't we go right ahead and start up our emulator.
Mario.
Now, once you have JoyToKey all set up and ready to go, I would recommend getting the emulator running and getting your save file loaded before opening JoyToKey, because as soon as you open JoyToKey, it'll load up your profile instantly, and then once you get back to the emulator, your mouse is going to be stuck in that. So anyone who's played Mario 64 DS knows that when you press down on the touchscreen, you get this little circle icon here, and the circle icon dictates essentially analog movements. So we click the left bumper, at least I click the left bumper, and it'll activate a hold mouse click, and then by moving the analog stick, we have a quasi-analog control movement setup. And those +8, -8, +15, -15 values for the for cardinal directions, those basically are congruent to the size of this mouse cursor here, because anyone who has played Mario 64 DS knows that if you move the stylus too far or outside of this circle icon, the damn thing will move all around the touchscreen. So there's never really a defined center point for moving around with the stylus, which makes it really, really hard to get accustomed to. But with the values from the analog stick that I have set, the circle icon will never move. It never will. And this took a while to get properly configured, because the maximum running speed is really, really, really close to the boundary to which the circle icon will begin to move around the touchscreen. So yeah, it just takes a while to get around. This is what works best for me. Your situation may be different. You may have to tinker it with some more, and feel free to. This is just what works best for me. And then, of course, we map the buttons to the controller. And yeah, now one little weird thing is that when you open up a door or any other kind of similar odd gameplay quirk happens, you'll notice that the circle icon will dart around the screen, like you see that, and it just kind of, yeah. You see how it did that? It just kind of flew around the screen. Well, all you need to do is just kind of rotate the analog stick in a circle to get the circle icon aligned up and recentered, and you should be good to go. Now, let's enter a stage real quick. Yeah, you see that Mario was just working around. Yeah, it's a little finicky, a little awkward, but it works. All right. Now, as exciting as this may seem, it kind of goes without saying that despite how much better this would theoretically be than the standard D-pad controls of the original Mario 64 DS release, it's not going to be better than the original N64 release of Mario 64. That much is for sure. It's definitely a good compromise, or a good alternative for people who could not, adjust to the D-pad controls. This is merely the best possible analog stick setup you could get. Another thing to consider is if we go to the menu here and go to control modes, Mario 64 offers 3 different control modes: standard, touch, and dual hand. You're never going to want to use dual hand. Dual hand is essentially worthless for us. All we can really work with is standard mode or touch mode. But this basically means, okay, here's how I interpret it. Standard mode is if you want to be able to zoom the camera out. Like so. And you want to be able to zoom the camera out like so. Or maybe get a zoomed in camera. Do you want to be able to do that? Or go to touch mode, which is essentially, do you want to be able to rotate the camera left and right? Like so. Unfortunately, you can't really do both at the same time. I tried to configure to where a little button in the bottom right touchscreen corner there, that button right there, that touchscreen button in the lower right, will zoom out the camera, and I tried to map another hotkey to get the mouse cursor to jump to that position to let us zoom the camera out and be able to rotate the camera at the same time. But unfortunately, I haven't really been able to get that to work. I don't know if it's compatibility issues or what, but I haven't been able to do it. So for now, we only have the 2 options of being able to zoom out the camera or rotate the camera left and right. And I chose rotating the camera left and right to be the most preferable option, at least for me. You might be different, but this is just what works best for me. So yeah, now the reason why I have another profile is because in case you need to exit a stage for whatever reason, for some reason you have to hit the exit course touchscreen button on the bottom, but as you can see, our mouse just can't reach it. And if we tried to use the actual mouse on the computer, it's not going to work. which is why, you know, I have a second profile in JoyToKey, which is basically a blank profile for the sole purpose of giving us control over the mouse cursor again with the actual mouse in case, you know, I want to exit out of stage or something like that. But yeah. So yeah, this is my setup for how to get analog controls in Mario 64 DS. It goes without saying that this isn't going to be a real replacement compared to the original analog controls of Mario 64 on the N64. And it's really just a problem with Mario 64 DS itself. You know, the physics and momentum are all different compared to the original. The three main examples I can think of is Mario in particular. He jumps much higher. At least his triple jump is a lot higher than the original. And moving in perpendicular directions in midair, like so. You can see how far left I was able to move Mario there. That's been a lot. You know, that's a lot more sensitive now, so you can move characters in midair, I guess, more freely. Which I imagine was implemented to be a bit to help compensate for the more restrictive D-pad controls. But for here, it does make midair control a little awkward, and it has caused me more deaths than anything. So there's that, and then also diving, the dive move. Yeah, the dive doesn't exactly carry your momentum like it did in the original. It's actually more like Mario Odyssey now, where it's like a set distance that you're given for the dive move. Yeah, this is how I get analog controls in Mario 64 DS. You might have to tinker with it yourself. You might have to change different values or do, you know, whatever that works best for your setup, but this is what works best for me. Again, I can't stress enough that this is not better than the original Mario 64 controls. It just isn't. Down to the game's code, it isn't better. I bet if Nintendo added native analog controls to this game somehow, it would still not be better than Mario 64 on the N64. This right here is essentially just the best analog stick alternative for people who can never get into Mario 64 DS because of the D-pad controls. You know, this is a way for them to experience the, in my opinion, improved visuals of this version and the loads of additional content while also having a comfortable enough analog control setup that works, and it works pretty darn well. But again, it's not better than the original Mario 64 controls, but it does work pretty damn well for what it is, and it works just fine. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope it's been helpful and educational. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Oh yeah, before I forget, one thing I would also recommend really quickly is have Task Manager open, because when you're done, for some reason for me, closing JoyToKey won't actually close JoyToKey. So I would recommend just having Task Manager open to just, you know, end it manually. So yeah, alright, for real this time.